antithetical to what we're trying to accomplish. We don't want it to contribute flavor.
Okay.
At all. We want to just showcase the what was there to start with. And there's a lot of ways to go the other direction. I mean, there's certainly yeast that produce aromatic compounds. There are yeast that have can produce diacetyl, which is kind of a buttery sort of a compound. And there's yeast that can consume malic acid to reduce apparent acidity and lots of other things. But generally not, just as we're kind of broadly looking at our philosophy of making fermented beverages, that's what we're trying to do. So.
I noticed in drinking this that there is a little acid balance going on in here. So this is just a straight traditional. Now, what are you doing in the process of fermentation to create that balance? Since it's real easy, and I'm sure you're aware of this and have run into it. It's real easy to go cloying when you're on the sweet side.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that acidity is going to be. I mean, without acid, that would be. I just shudder to think about it. I mean, you just can't have sugar without balance to the balancing force. I mean, it just wouldn't work. So yeah, there's certainly acids that are added to it, and I would encourage anybody to do that. Yeah, right. And there's a lot of different choices. I mean, what we use is not that critical, but the kind of the top food grade acids would be tartaric, malic, and citric. So and it's interesting because they have. Their effect on the wine, the perception of acidity, just the olfactory sense of acidity is not the same as pH, okay? The strength of acidity measured by pH is different than how tart it tastes. I've never quite figured that out, but that is the case. And so, not only is adding acid improving the balance of that beverage, but it's also lowering the pH, which is going to make it much more biologically stable.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a really important thing. So.
And when during the ferment do you add the acid?
We go right from the start. Yeah, because so we're looking at a pH of that around in the low 3s, so maybe 3.1, 3.2, and I really want to in the fermentation. We have opportunistic spoilage bacteria that can get involved in this whole thing, and you got honey, which is a kind of dirty, really, when it comes off in a raw state, and in terms of its mix of potential spoilage organisms, and they're sort of in a sort of they're just almost like in a suspended animation in that ultra high sugar environment through. Osmotic stress because they get dehydrated because of the high sugar environment they're in. But once it's diluted down to 24 bricks, thereabout, then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, let's get going, boys. And those spoilage bacteria can really take off and do some unfortunate things if that is not acidified at fermentation. So I think fermenting something that's in the maybe 6.0, 5 above 5.0 pH is a recipe for microbial spoilage.
Now, is this something you've seen happen in your wines, or has this actually happened in your mead?
We don't see it because we're so cautious. But I just know that a lot of the spoilage organisms just are completely not viable below. Let's just pick a pH of like 3.5 or something like that. They're just not gonna get going. They have just no chance. But yeast are uniquely adapted to low pH environments, probably through many generations of having evolved, growing up and living in fruit juices and grape juice. And grape juice is 3.0 to 3.5 naturally. So.
Okay, so you just when you created this in the first place, you just went straight in with the acid then.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
And just to confirm, how far do you drop it? What's your target before fermentation?
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
That's all right. What's your target acidity before the target pH before fermentation?
What's the target pH? I mean, it's gonna be around 3.2. So that's kind of that's the starting point. And then at the end, let's just say we got it all cleaned up, right? So we've centrifuged it. We got the honey add back, and now it's it's pretty close, right? I mean, it's pretty close to where what we think is gonna be good. Then we start tweaking acidity with maybe just minor, really minor amounts of citric, just a little bit, just to kind of just sort of brighten it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So that's really an important part. But that kind of lab benches where we're, in all our wines go through this, where we have a panel, and we all of us that are involved in the making of mead and the wines are come in on a kind of a tasting afternoon where we've got a whole panel of glasses in front of us and we're just tasting them blind. Which one's the best here? Which one really is the one that we think we need to bottle here? And often those are acid trials.
Okay.
And then hydrogen sulfide is another. I don't know if you run into that much in your mead making world, but something you need to kind of be cautious about. So.
Yeah. Now, do you after you finish?
Yes.
After you get it all finished and balanced and back sweetened and all that sort of thing, are you stabilizing before you bottle?
In what sense? Protein or?
Well,
protein stability or?
Well, yeah, protein stability, sulfite,
or biological, or
shelf
bacterial.
stable,
yeah,
basically.
Right. So,
yeah,
right. Okay, shelf stable. Well, there are two things probably we would look at. One, biological stability in terms of yeast, and so we're still bottling, right? So, 0.45 micron bottling, right? So we're going into the bottle yeast free, right? So that's the why won't it ferment again type of stability, and then there's protein. Yeah, but you wouldn't want to bottle it there after that. I've never seen anything re-ferment after we've centrifuged it, but even in bulk tanks, they don't seem to want to. But certainly that kind of insurance of sleeping better at night, going through membrane type filters prior to on the way to the bottling line is definitely the way to go, and that's pretty common technology. The other kind of stability that would be something I would be concerned with would be protein stability for developing a haze, and that's certainly something I think the classic treatment for that is bentonite fining, right? So that's the way you can remove protein from about anything, any sort of beverage where that's a concern.
Okay, that's interesting because
SO2 would be it.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go Yeah, sulfur dioxide. That's a highly dependent on pH, the effectiveness of them. So the classic is because it dissociates into bound or unavailable, and then free SO2, and really what you want it's the free part you want. And we're shooting for 0.8 molecular, 0.8 parts per million molecular, which translates usually at pH 3.1 would be about 10 to 15 parts per million. Okay. So it's not very much. Yeah. It's not very much at all. I mean, that's super low, but it's enough at that lower pH to be effective.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say your bottles made it to me, and gosh knows what they went through on between your place and my place, and then it got on a trailer and rode 1,000 miles up to northern Michigan, and bouncing around in the back of a trailer, which I can tell you is not a smooth ride.
I think Mead's tough.
Yeah,
I mean it really is.
Yeah, it's
it takes a lot more abuse than just your some delicate whites, Pinot Grigio or something like that would be cooked. But
well, we all know the abuse I put some of my Meads through. I got one bottle that spent like a decade on the kitchen floor with nothing but saran wrap over the mouth of it. It was fine.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's crazy.
I think a lot of it depends on the meat.
Very faint micro-oxidation, and that was it.
Yeah. Oh, that's delightful. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, this thing is this bottle has been through whatever heat it experienced in traveling to my house. And then while we're towing the trailer, the air conditioning is not on. That runs on electric. So, of course, there's no electric hooked up when it's being pulled behind my truck. And, so we're going 4 or 5 hours at a time, and it's been hitting in the 90s. I don't know what's going with that. I was hoping to have left that behind. But, it's hitting in the 90s. And then it was stored. I've got a bunk, a loft bunk that's above my main area. and that's where all the wine's hanging out. And it was living in one of those A-line styrofoam boxes, the cardboard boxes with the styrofoam forms.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I love those things because A, they're safe as houses, and B, they insulate, But so it's experiencing a lot of temperature swings, and I would have fully expected there to be some off notes when I cracked this after chilling it today. And there wasn't any. Yeah. There wasn't any at all.
What's your take on it? I mean, with your vast knowledge of mead, just give me some reference to where it lives. Honestly, I don't drink a lot of mead.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear your take on how it compares to many of your favorites, or just kind of industry standards.
Industry standard wise, I've drunk a lot of traditionals, and it's pretty clean. It's clean. It's relatively well balanced. It's a little on the sweet side for me personally, and it's funny because I used to be like sweet meads only, but now as I've gotten older and drank more mead and so forth and so on, my tastes have gradually moved more to center, so I'm kind of on a medium sweet kind of place right now most of the time. But it's not cloying, and a lot of sweet meads tend to verge into that cloying place, which makes them undesirable. I'm more than halfway through this bottle, and I don't feel like like I've burned my fillings out, which is common with sweet meads. Sweet traditionals tend to go there in a lot of cases. So I can see that you're putting some fairly tight controls on this, but balanced, no off flavors. I didn't get a lot of orange blossom in the nose when I first uncorked it and poured a glass. But once it sat and opened up for about 5 minutes or so, it started really giving off a lot of orange nose. And of course, the orange blossom flavor is like, you've got to be blind to miss it. It's just it's so prominent and so so singular. But it's clean, and I like that. It's hard to achieve in a traditional, and it's even harder to achieve and keep it shelf stable in a traditional, because it's so there's no place to hide, as I'm sure you're well aware, when you're dealing with nothing but those just the honey and honey water and yeast. There's no place to hide. So if any part of your process isn't spot on, then it's not going to handle the amount of abuse that it's got to take to get from your door into the glass of the consumer. And that's something that unfortunately we see sometimes, and less often. Every year we see less of it, but as the industry grows and matures and we learn more about how mead works. But it's obvious that the wine techniques that you're applying, because we were all kind of digitally looking at each other going acid at the beginning, because it's not real common in home mead making. Most people,
not anymore anyway.
Yeah, not anymore. It used to be every time, because that all came out of winemaking. Acton and Duncan and all of those guys were all
Joy of Home winemaking. Yeah, all of them wanted you to essentially make mead by mimicking grape wine, but that's not the sugars don't work that way.
Yeah. So we've moved away from that in wine or mead making now. So it's not a common thing. So I was kind of like acid in the beginning, and we're on the back channel going, really acid in the beginning, but it's working. So but obviously it is working in this case. So it's apparent that you know where you're going with this, and you know what you've got to start with, and so. You're obviously, I'm assuming you got a lab set up where you're able to titrate this and say, I got blah amount of acid, so I need this much to get it here.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt. So Oliver Winery is over here just sort of on a parallel mead making path with the rest of the mead making world. Is all collaborating and everything, and we're just kind of doing our own thing like we always have. It's kind of interesting. We're a little isolated, and a little kind of maybe inbred or something, because we haven't really communicated much with the rest of the mead community.
Oh,
so I really
wasn't
aware that people
first,
Yeah, we're a winery. But I'm delighted with where it is right now. I think we've achieved our stylistic goal. Whether or not that conforms with other mead expectations, I don't really know. I wouldn't call it like highly complex or anything. I would call it more sort of pure. But it certainly has a nice solid following for us. And seen a nice little uptick in sales with the new label, new package.
It's a nice looking label. It's very very eye catching. But yeah, I like the way you've reformulated it. I think you've fine tuned it. Is probably the best way I can put it. Because I'm trying to remember when I first had it, and I remember it stood out for me because I like orange blossom honey.